Melbourne rock band, the Casanovas, has been around for 20 years. The band has the sheer rock power of ACDC and a rock-solid new album, Reptilian Overlord.
I mean, I don't give a shit that my ego's still large, but yeah.
No, that's right. We've accepted you over the years.
I'm Paul Cashmere. Co-founders Tommy Boyce and Damo Campbell are talking with you at noise11.com.
The Casanovas formed in 1999, so I guess, you know, it's a weird year, 2020, because this should have been basically a year of celebrating your 20th anniversary as a band.
Yeah, 21st anniversary. Yeah, we're 1999. So, yeah, I know it's a real bummer, but we just got to roll with it. And I'm actually really glad that we're putting the record out regardless, because it would feel really, really... There's nothing worse than the feeling of just stagnating.
Yeah.
And so to get the record out is really important. And then we can tour on that next year. And we can also means that, you know, we'll have a clean slate to record our next album, hopefully like next year as well.
This is, well, do I consider this the fifth album or the fourth album? Because the first was more of an EP, wasn't it?
That's right. So it's our fourth full-length LP.
If I translate that back into heroes of yours, ACDC statistics, ACDC got to their fourth album 18 months after their first one. You guys have taken nearly 20 years.
That's 18 months after the first one.
So the first album was released on the 17th of February 1975. The fifth album was released in March 1977, 2 years and 1 month after their first album.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
If you look at that, like you look at someone like Bon Scott, you think of how massive he is, you know, as part of that band. And when you look at it in that sort of timeline sense, he actually wasn't in the band for very long. You know, that they actually did a lot in a very short amount of time.
That's so true. Yeah, they were just working so hard and all living in a house together, and you know. Totally different world.
The Beatles had broken up and released everything by the time they were 27.
Yeah, I know, it's wild, isn't it? And you think of some bands that put out their debut record, you know, when they're like 18 and stuff, and the maturity of songwriting and stuff is it blows me away. Like I feel like I'm only just for me personally anyway, as a songwriter, I feel like I'm only just starting to approach some of that standard, and I'm 45. Like, so I mean, it's better late than never, but you know.
Well, Reptilian Overlord is this band working with Mark Opitz. So Mark Opitz worked with ACDC, in fact, on Let There Be Rock, their fifth album. So he's not only worked with the Casanovas on their fifth album, he's worked with ACDC on their fifth album. So you do have a bit of a story to tell there.
If this album's anywhere near as good as Let There Be Rock, I'll be super stoked. Yeah, because that for me is, and I think with Damo as well, that's your favourite one, Damo, is it?
Yeah.
Let There Be Rock. Yeah, for me, it's hard for me to decide between Let There Be Rock, Power Age and Highway to Hell, but definitely I think the band, ACDC, really hit their strides on Let There Be Rock, and prior to that, I reckon they were still a bit boogie-woogie, and then when they did Let There Be Rock, it's like that really is the ACDC that we've come to know and love, I reckon.
So having access to Mark Opitz for an extended period of time to record an album, I'm sure you must have sat down and grabbed a few stories out of him.
Yeah, we had him forced upon us, really. Like, he was pretty keen to regale us with stories from the past.
Hollywood Riot, the first taste of the record. Was the album basically wrapped up at that point when Hollywood Riot was first released?
Absolutely, yeah. Recording wise, absolutely, yeah. There's always just so much other stuff to be done, and it's more on the company side of things. Like, but as far as the records, recording and mixing, that was all done, completed. But you know, there's things. The artwork wasn't finalized, and you know, understandably, you know, the record company wants to release a few singles, drop, you know, roll it out in a sort of strategic kind of fashion, and that makes sense. So I can understand them, you know, wanting to hold it back for this year. It's just a bummer that the COVID thing happened.
Sure. The title, Reptilian Overlord, which is the final track on the album, but it's a fantastic title for a record.
Yeah.
What inspired that?
Well, the song title, I guess. I mean, because we were going through some of the songs and thinking which song would make a good title track, for one of not having another kind of title that just embraced the whole sort of feeling of the record. But the song title was, you know, I mean, the song is about that that sort of David Icke, you know, conspiracy world, which is, you know, believe it or not, it still makes for a good story. It's pretty funny. So having written a story about that, we just thought, like you said, makes a catchy record title.
We had narrowed it. We had 3, didn't we? We narrowed it down. We were looking at midlife crisis as potential as well, and either that or Cold Day in Hell, you know, all with sort of the same, you know, or differing themes.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have heard St Kilda is Fucked as the album title. I thought that would have made great artwork.
Pretty specific, yeah, but yeah, artwork for sure.
St Kilda is Fucked. Let's talk about that song for a moment. You know, St Kilda is one of the great towns in Australia. Why the disparaging there? What did St Kilda ever do to you?
Well, it's not so much what it did to us. It's more that it used to be such an awesome place, you know, in terms of music and art and to live. You know, it was kind of grungy and weird, and there was heaps of great live venues, and it was cheap to live there. Had the beach, such a cool sort of eclectic kind of place, and now it's been completely polished up and you know, it's sort of like a haven for cashed up bogans, you know.
Overdevelopment.
Yeah, it's just sort of lost all its mojo. It's still a beautiful place, obviously, but it's I mean, having grown up there myself, I had a kind of real attachment to the place. So now when I go back there, it's just like I don't recognize it, you know.
Yeah, Haven for Cashed Up Bogans would also be a good title for a John Williamson album, I would imagine.
Yeah, for sure.
Earlier this year, we were dropped Red Hot as a song. So, you know, you've obviously selected certain songs along the way. Red Hot, the second introduction to the album, along with St Kilda is Fucked. But, you know, Red Hot was, you know, the main A-side of the single at that point. Tell me about that one.
That's a kind of, I mean, I remember writing that one and just wanting to have a song that has, you know, a bit more back on the beat, that has a bit of space in between chords, you know, like the way kind of Free do that, you know, in songs like All Right Now or Fire and Water, you know, there's a bit of airtime in between chords as opposed to just frenetically going for it, you know. And then, you know, in the first verse, we have that thing where the bass guitar just drops out, very a la King of the Nighttime World, that Kiss song. I just remember as a kid when I first heard Kiss Alive 2, hearing that song, I think it's second on the record after Detroit Rock City, and just be like, whoa, that's so cool, the way the bass guitar just drops out and it's just drums and guitar and vocals. And then when the bass kicks in the chorus, it's like, hallelujah, you know? So that's what we were going for there.
Damo, tell me about your musical influences then. You know, as Tommy's talking about Kiss and, you know, his favourites there, who were you listening to around that time?
We share a lot of similarities. You know, I guess I probably just growing up in Tassie, you know, with that kind of influence on a lot of the sort of rock punk bands that came through there. And I guess, you know, bands like sort of Fridge and Tumbleweed and that sort of stuff was part of what I grew up with, as well as, you know, ACDC and Motorhead and the Ramones and all that sort of thing. So we share a lot, but of similarities with who we like. But I probably have a lot more, I guess, you know, probably more straight ahead punk rock bands as well that I grew up with. And that's, you know, where you've got sort of a little bit more of a modern day band like Turbo Negro. They've sort of encaptured that quite well, where they've got that really great mix of classic punk rock with sort of classic rock parts in there as well. So, but yeah, look, I mean, I like all sorts of stuff, you know, really. And I think you still explore as you get older bands you've never heard before as well. But but it's pretty much, you know, instilled in that classic rock.
Yeah, that's the thing I reckon, and I've just was thinking about this before. We've never ever tried to fit into one of the categories, you know. We don't, and we do probably fall a little bit in between the genres, the cracks of between the genres, like the way that the Dictators were too punk rock for rock and roll, and they're too rock and roll for punk, so they don't kind of get the same accolades as a band like the Ramones, who are obviously just strictly punk rock, you know what I mean? And because we love, like Damo just said, really obscure punk rock all the way through to the most obvious of classic rock, you know, and everything in between. So, and when we write music, we don't sort of, there's never a contrived attempt to be to try and fit into one of those styles or anything. It's just, we just do what we love, you know, and we write music that we would love to hear if we were the audience, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, Casanovas for, you know, many, many years have always had this, you know, ACDC-ism sort of thing. And that's cool in the sense that we like a lot of ACDC stuff, but we've never sort of gone about, okay, so now we're writing a next album. How do we, you know, ACDC-ism it? You know, we're not like that at all. I think we've long broken that mold, you know, years ago. Like, if you listen to some of our stuff, we'll have stuff that sounds like Cheap Trick, you know, other songs that sound like Kiss, or other songs that sound like Motorhead, or, you know, and there's nothing that's really purposeful about writing it that way. It's just from our the stuff that we like. It just sort of comes into the particular song that we're trying to write at the time.
You guys have toured with Motley Crue, Damo. You just mentioned Motorhead a minute ago as well. Was that tour that they did where they were both on the same bill?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I can't remember Tommy. Do you remember what year that was?
2005, I believe.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that was a real eye opener of a tour. I mean, to be on that as a first on. I mean, and you know, we played literally when the doors opened, so we were sort of, you know, you can imagine the stage setups of both of those bands with Motley Crue just on that particular tour. That was the something Circus, was it? That album that they had out. They had like the circus tent sort of thing going on. And,
right. Yeah.
So they had all this stuff on stage and everything, and, you know, and we were the first on band that like had this tiny little section all grouped in at the front of the stage, and we would literally start playing, you know, as the doors opened on a strict stopwatch. Remember that tour manager guy?
Yeah, with the lights still on.
Lights still on. Yeah.
It's just rocking up.
Half sound?
Yeah, probably about a tenth of the sound.
Yeah.
I reckon it's one of those gigs and tours that looks much better on the resume than it really is in reality.
And you probably get more out of just the experience of being on those shows and sort of seeing some of the happenings backstage with the band and the, you know, the entourage and everything, than the actual playing the show.
For sure.
And I remember that with Motley Crue sort of had just this endless entourage of you know, tour managers and assistants and all this stuff happening everywhere, and all the guys from Motley Crue having a separate huge space for backstage. And then you had Motorhead that was just all contained sort of in, you know, just a couple of dressing rooms. It was a little bit more sort of old school rock and roll, and, you know, they'd all just hang out together, and, you know, like only like a quarter of the amount of entourage and everything like that. It was quite interesting seeing that.
Yeah, Motley Crue were just untouchable. Even though, like, I'd previously struck up a friendship with Tommy Lee like 6 months before, where at these Jack Daniels Awards, we went out and hit the town, me and Tommy Lee and a few others. And then I bumped into him by pure chance in Byron Bay a week after that. And once again, we were hanging out and stuff. And then like 6 months later, we're doing this tour with Motley Crue, and I'm backstage. I walk past and I go, "Hey, Tommy." And he's like, "Hey, dude," and just walks off into the dressing room. Like, you just forgot who I was.
That's so good.
Yeah.
So good. Like, here I was thinking that, oh yeah, cool. I'm gonna be like in with the Motley Crue guys. It's gonna be cool and stuff. But I just totally forgot.
That's obviously why that entire scene was left out of the Motley Crue biopic movie. You and Tommy having a drink together. I would have thought that would have been pivotal to the biopic.
Yeah. No, I was devastated. But especially the scene where we're sitting at this restaurant in Byron Bay, and he was going, "This is the best feta cheese I have ever tasted, dude. Dude, you got to try this feta cheese, man."
Well, I'll ask you about one more song before we go. Lost and Lonely Dreams is the current song we've got out there. Another, this is a full-on rock record, isn't it?
Yeah, Lost and Lonely Dreams. I actually wrote that song like for a collaboration I was going to do with Van Walker, Donovan Walker, and then that never eventuated. But I had a bunch of songs that I'd written to play with Van, and one of them was that one. And I thought, because those songs were a bit more melodic and a bit less hard-edged, and I thought, oh, you know what? I reckon this song will still work as a Casanovas song, and I'm really glad we did put it in there, because it does kind of give the record a different flavor and a welcome one. Because that when we play that song live, it gets a lot of, "Oh, what was that song? What was that song you played?" That and people seem to really dig it. So yeah.
Well, the album Reptilian Overlord, we will officially call it the fourth album from the Casanovas. And I guess it puts you into, now that you can't get out there and tour, it's almost like those Beatle years of studio albums only, no live performances. So, don't think of it as COVID, think of it as the latter Beatle period for the Casanovas.
Yeah. Well, actually, we're thinking of doing a rooftop gig as a publicity stunt. So wouldn't get any more Beatles than that. But no, it absolutely sucks. Not being able to play live absolutely sucks. Like we're just, we're so bummed about that. As all our muso friends are. Just like, it's your livelihood, it's your passion, it's what you love to do, and all of a sudden you're not allowed to do it.
Good to catch up. Reptilian Overlord is the one to all jump on and listen to. Casanovas at Noise 11.